You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 421. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Kane Roberts. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really good. I'm just sort of getting into my routine for the day. You know, like people don't know this. I'm the people that know me know that I'm awake all the time. Like they'll get texts from me at 4 a.m. You know, I don't know what it is. I'm not a big sleep fan, so I sleep maybe 4 hours a night, and then you know I get into doing whatever work I got to do and guitar, and you know I got a lot of things coming up. Potentially some stuff with Alice and everything, and along with some other stuff. So I do that, and then of course I work out. And you know I've been working out for a long time, so you know I don't walk in the gym the same way. I just kind of go in, get it done, and leave. So that's right where I am right now. I just finished up.
Oh, okay. You're at the gym?
Yeah, I'm in the parking lot actually. So.
Oh, okay. No, cool. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's wow. I am a sleep fan. The only reason I get 4 hours now is because of my 5-month-old. So we're much different, and I'm probably the size of one of your biceps. You know.
That's an official sayonara to sleep. Everybody knows that. Yeah. And by the way, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. My first, and it's it helps me, you know, it's interesting, shape my interviews and how I approach it. So, you know, before we get into your new stuff and with Alice and, of course, the Guns N' Roses, the 6 degrees of G&R Bacon, as I call it, in the connection with my guests. For you, I want to know a little bit more about you. Like what came first? Was it the guitar or the dumbbell? Like, did you start working out, or is it the music that came first for you?
The dumbbell activities didn't really begin until much later. I was like, you know, I was a skinny kid with a guitar, and you know, I was the guitar player at high school, you know, all that stuff, and then you know, my parents wanted me to go to Boston University, and I got in, and I quit right away, and ended up going to New England Conservatory. You know what I mean? And at the end of that, you know, after a few years of that, I remember I was talking to somebody, a sax player, classical saxophone player. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know, what's the advantage of you know, graduating from here? And he said, because it's a very difficult school to get into. They accepted 2 the year I got in. So, you know, for 2 guitar players. So he said, it's just for teaching. So I immediately bailed, and I moved to New York. And, you know, I thought I was the shit. I thought I was like, oh, man, I'm a fucking awesome guitar player. And so, you know, Alice gets in touch with me. I was good enough for that. And then I move out to California, and oh my God, there's so many fucking great guitar players. And is it okay to do profanity? I don't want to.
Oh yeah, no, it's okay, all good.
Okay. So I, you know, it was the first level of school that I went to. The next school I went to was the first tour. You've got to do a tour, I believe, before you're a professional. Like I came off from playing almost every night with Alice and these big stages, you know, where at Wembley and Joe Louis Arena, all this stuff. By the end of that day, you now know what it takes to sort of navigate through a pro world where like there's so many amazing musicians, and you know the standard just gets raised. And you know one of the things I tell young musicians and you know older musicians that want to you know make something out of their lives, you know they say, how do you do it? How do you get so that you're playing with Alice Cooper? How do you get a record deal? How do you do this and how do you do that? And I remember when I was at the conservatory, I remember reading an interview by this guy named Art Blakey. He was this jazz drummer in this band called Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And somebody asked him the same question. And he said, you have to have faith. And he said, the core of that faith is if you work hard enough, the world will beat a path to your door. And I am the shining example of that. I'm not saying if you're great, I'm not saying I'm great or this. I just worked really hard. And I'll say if ever I do, seminars or advise people that come up to me, I can't even believe somebody's asking for my advice, but they ask me, like, how do you make it in the business and all that stuff. My point is that there's not one route that you take. Very often it's a circuitous route. It's all over the place. Like, you try to do something, you do a showcase, you get the record company to come down, you have enough Facebook followers to maybe get some interest going. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are happening today. But the key is that you have to have faith. It's you talk to any of the people that I know that are, quote unquote, my peers that are in the industry. The truth of it is, they'll all say the same thing. Everybody told them you're going to fail. You shouldn't do it. It's not a good business to be in. And they're right. It's not a good business to be in if you want some sort of security. So that's not what faith is about. Faith is about taking every step as you walk, and you have faith that there's ground underneath your feet, that a car's not going to come out somewhere and just like blow you away or something like that. And the point is that you have to say, I'm going to make it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do this. I'm going to spit blood if I have to in order to get this done. So, that I became obsessed with the guitar. I became obsessed with me thinking, I just want to play good. And then it's just I just want to do a live show. And then I want to do an album. And then it just keeps growing that way. So I was like a skinny kid. I think I played tennis once in a while. That was about it. So it wasn't until I would say a year or two before I met Alice that I started getting into lifting weights. And I, maybe somebody kicked sand in my face when I was a kid, like those comic book ads, I'm not sure what it was, but it really took hold, so that by the time he saw me, he was, I was pretty big. And you think about it, and this is about my thing about faith. The only band in the world that would have hired me looking like that was Alice Cooper. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you that if somebody says, is that what I need? I'm a true believer to say, you got to have faith that something's going to happen. Something will beat a path to your door. And, there's nothing else you can say. I can say, well, make a demo, and do that stuff, and all the sort of functional skills that you have to have. Of course, you have to be great at your instrument and all that. And that's the key. So,
and you have to love it, I think, too, because you're going to get a lot of rejections. And if you don't love it, I compare it a little bit because I don't have, radio is not as cool as being a rock star, but radio is very difficult, and I've had a lot of rejections in my life. And I told myself, well, I'm 40 now, but by the time I'm 28, if I wasn't full time in radio by that time, and it took me 7 years to get full time in radio, but I loved it. And so I guess to direct it back to you, what made you fall in love with the guitar? Was it influence from family? Was it a video or a song that you heard on the radio? What made you fall in love with the guitar and want to follow that path?
That's an interesting question, because what you find is, as probably the first 10 years of your life are the most influential years that you're going to run into. I know this guy, very, very intelligent, like a Mensa member, one of those guys that the IQ was just off the charts. And he just had a kid, and he was telling me, he was looking at his kid thinking, her brain is an empty hard drive. And the difference is you can't delete anything. So anything that goes in there is going to be part of the recipe for the rest of their lives. Yeah. So, somehow I saw myself on stage. I would see, didn't matter who the artist was, I would see them and think like, geez, I really want to do that. And then just the first time I sat down with a guitar in my hand, it became my life. So any sort of steps forward I made was the ultimate form of gratification. It was immediate gratification. It's almost like a computer. That's the thing that people are used to. They want faster and faster speed on their computer. They don't want any delay. They want to make something purple. Boom, it's purple. They feel good that way. Yeah. And that's what the guitar was for me. If I felt my hands getting a little bit more facile on the strings, my perception of music and what I was learning, and suddenly, oh my God, I just played a whole fucking song. Unbelievable. And this is part of the process, and it hasn't abated. It hasn't changed at all. I'm still the same way, and I still feel like, the learning process, this is a very, guru kind of a thing on the top of a mountain. But the learning process just doesn't quit, and that's one of the things that, keeps me excited. Of course I wanted to step out, the first year, and the world's going to greet me with open legs. You know what I mean? I'm going to be able to rock the world right away. But, it takes time. And if you love it, just like what you said, it's okay, because every little inch you go, gets you, it just makes you feel amazing. So that's what it's about.
Did your parents support you?
My dad, not so much, because I got into the the Boston University, and it was the type of thing where, well, they've got it's a legit school. He's smart enough to get in. All the times I had to beat the lessons into his head were paying off, and I just didn't want to do it. So my whole thing was, I said, well, can I go to music school? And he said, well, I don't want you to go. I won't name the school but he said, I don't want you to go here. I want, they're both in Boston. I want you to go to the New England Conservatory of Music. And he said that, and that, like I said, 2 guitar players that year. And it's really funny. I haven't really told this too much, but my audition, I don't know if you saw the movie Flashdance, but I mean, the girl had to dance, in front of all these like amazing, educators and professionals and everything. And, I mean, I fit into the leotard, but no, I'm kidding. No, but what happened was I had to bring my guitar into a room with all the, the president of the college and all these like famous musicians, jazz and classical. And by the way, there were no rock musicians in there. That was the sort of it's probably still that way. I don't know. But so I had to play an original composition. I had to play with a band, and they kept changing the key while I'm playing. So I had to hear that. I mean, I walked out of there just dripping with sweat, and I go, well, I'm not going to this fucking school, I could tell. And, somehow I got in, much to my parents' dismay, and, they ponied up and they paid for it. So, it ended up being a tremendous discipline. Maybe, that whole thing I gave about faith, of course it requires discipline. That's how you get great,
Yeah.
So, but that was the schedule of it. So, they begrudgingly did it. And it wasn't until I sent a limo for my parents to come and see me at the Boston Garden with Alice that, they kind of got it.
Where in Boston you from?
A place called Newton, Massachusetts.
Okay, because
Do you know where that is?
I started my radio career up in Cape Cod, which I know is not.
Dude, I used to
Jace.
go to Marshfield Beach. It's not quite Cape, but I used to go down there all the time.
Because one of my buddies, because I would visit Boston a lot, and I would go to Stoughton a lot.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, it's interesting, and now I'm hearing, because I didn't know where you were from. I'm hearing that slight Boston accent.
Yeah, the accent. Yeah, it comes in and out. And Boston is. The reason why I moved to New York is I felt like Boston was kind of this, stodgy sort of old money place, and New York was ready to take on anything you threw at it, and it would respond honestly to it, but with not all this sort of political, financial sort of agenda attached to it. So it was a good move for me because and I remember going there for my first session. And I was just really scared. I was just a kid, and I'm playing. And I remember I had my amp set up, and my guitar. I had to go pick something up, so I walked, a few feet away, and I pulled all the devices on the top of my amp onto the floor. Big loud noise and everything. So it was kind of a train wreck. I got it done, but then as time went on, I became more experienced and confident. So I started doing studio work, playing in different. On different albums or whatever I could. So, yeah.
Then how did Alice present itself? Because, here you are, a self-proclaimed skinny kid, that you knew what you wanted to do, and you experienced the collegiate pressure. But now here, you're going to get an opportunity to tour with the legendary Alice Cooper. How does that jump go? Because I'm sure there's a lot of other kids in your position that wanted that job, but what made you the perfect match before you went all Rambo and that
yeah. I have a funny Rambo story with him.
Okay.
But yeah, the thing of it is, I was going in the studio, and I was doing the thing, and every musician is going to recognize it. I was getting in there 1 a.m. for free with the assistant engineer. And I'd record something and we'd mix it. And, I was doing that all the time. And then a friend of mine said, is anybody hearing your songs? And I said, well, not really. He said, you got to send them to record companies, publishing companies. I sent it to one publishing company called Screen Gems, which no longer exists. And they responded really well to it. In other words, they had me come down, and I signed a contract with them, which was really, silly, like almost no money. But and what happened was the guy there was this guy named Don Passione, and he sent it to Bob Ezrin. And Bob Ezrin was, of course, of Pink Floyd fame and Alice Cooper and Kiss, and they called me down to New York City. So I went down there, and I remember walking into the office, and I just saw just such a legacy of all these artists. I mean, people don't realize necessarily that Shep managed Teddy Pendergrass, Raquel Welch, Blondie. I mean, just so many bands and so many celebrities and artists. So I saw all this on the walls, and I was going, whoa. And now one thing I want to clarify is it's not out of ego. I don't get nervous in situations like that. That first session I did, but after that, slowly that went away. It's not because I got this. It wasn't that. I just looked at it like it was the flow of what was happening at that time. It'll either work out or it won't. And I wasn't kind of freaked out by the situation. And, and I've mentioned this before, so I'll make it brief. I walk in to sit in front of Bob Ezrin, and, there's a big window and the skyline of Manhattan's behind him, and he's in this big chair and this walnut desk. And I swear to God, he gave me a lawn chair. I was sitting so low, I was looking up at the Wizard of Oz, and I know it was intentional. So, he basically said to me, look, you're a tremendous talent, but you're half of a great writing team. So I was being, prepared, and Alice was in the next room with Shep and the whole posse. So he said, I think this is going to be a great opportunity for you. So, and he told me about some of the sort of machinations that are going to go on while I'm there and all that stuff. So, so then it was time for me to go in the room, and I went in, and I see all these big music business accountants and Shep Gordon and Alice Cooper sitting there. Alice and I became best friends within 5 minutes.
I love that.
Yeah. So,
what was the connection?
We immediately start joking.
Okay.
And he'll say, he just said it again. He's been saying it for years. He just did it in a new interview, that I have the body of Sylvester Stallone and the brain of Jerry Lewis, because we laugh all the time, but he's the funny one. I mean, you can imagine that intellect, if you let it loose in whatever, but humor, it's unbelievable. So we were laughing so much, and we became such great friends. Now, here's the other thing, too, is he just got out of rehab from a very, very critical situation that he was in. It was very, very close to death. And, the management didn't want him with anybody that would ever want a beer or drink, offer him a beer or pull out a joint or whatever. I just didn't do drugs. I didn't drink, nothing. And I think that was also like they were keeping their fingers crossed that would sort of, it would work out and that would maintain itself. And he ended up pretty much living with me in Woodland Hills, as we wrote the different records and stuff. So.
Wow. Yeah, because that was an interesting time for him, and he's been famously sober for many years. But yeah, he had a major drinking problem, and it's just amazing. It just goes to tell everybody, shoot your shot. Like, just shoot your shot. That you were like, oh, do I send my music out to anybody? Okay. And that just led to these little stepping stones and Bob Ezrin and then Alice Cooper. And if you didn't do anything, it's, you're I don't know. It tells you to shoot your shot, much like how I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get Kane Roberts on this podcast. Let me send him an email. And then here you are.
Well, that's so true. I did a video recently. It was called a song called Beginning of the End. And I'm in the studio, and I sang the first verse, and I thought, yeah, I kind of killed it. That sounds really good. And then I was listening to it, and I go, what if that was Alice Cooper's voice? So I mentioned it to the guys in the studio, and they said, well, he's probably so busy or, who knows, you know what I mean? Because I know we're best friends. but it could be the case. He could be in Europe for whatever. He doesn't have the time. And I called him up, and he goes, I said, you want to sing on a song? And he went, yeah. He said, I'm in town. I'll be right over. So that's a perfect example of what you're saying.
Right.
And then my next notion, I'm about to do the guitar solo right in the middle where everybody puts it. I really object to feeling obligated to do that to music. You have to do this. The structure has to be, verse, bridge, chorus, all that stuff. And people are breaking that mold now, which is good. But I thought, what if Alyssa White Glues fell from the sky and just blew the fuck out of the song, because that's her ability. That's what she does. She's just an insanely talented musician. So I just took the shot, sent her the song. She said yes. And then my next thing was, it was done, and I'm shooting a video. I asked if Alice could be in the video and if Alyssa could be in the video. And I'll tell you right now, and this is a reflection on Alyssa's value of the creative process. She flew from Europe to Montreal, stayed there for 6 hours, and then flew to Vancouver to be in the video.
Wow.
Yeah. So she just gets, I'm forever indebted for her doing that. And, I just think, so, I almost was going to ask Oliver Stone to direct it. And the point is, like, why not? It's like what you said. Shep once said to me, in business, it's no until it's yes. And he said, that's the only way you have to look at it. It's not yes until it's no. He said, it's the other way around. And he said, that's what part of your belief system has to be.
Did you notice when you got jacked that that people stopped saying no to you? And how did your life?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was a weird transition to that, because before we go, I want to go more, of course, talk about Alice, but I'm curious about how your life changed with that too, because it kind of happened at the same time. Those are two life-changing things that you did, to team up with Alice and then your health and your body. I mean, that's something that people, you don't see. You're someone like me. I mean, I have no musical talent. That's why I'm in radio. But someone like me, small and scrawny, picks up a guitar to be the guitar god, to get the girls. But because we don't have the muscles, you got both. Right. So I mean, I'm curious how your life changed with that, and you're still in amazing shape.
Well, I started lifting in New York, and then I used to go to this gym. It was in this basement, and they had like sofas down there and heavy weights. The place was a fucking dump. But that's where I sort of learned everything from these guys. Some of them were like going to go on to do amazing stuff. So, and then when I moved to California, my days were filled with going to the gym and going to and playing guitar, and of course being with Alice. But in order to get that big, a lot of the guys around me were like pros. So they started saying, hey, you ought to do a little juice, shoot some steroids and stuff like that. So I started doing that for a while, and I went from 190 to 230 pounds. There's a black and white photo of me shirtless with the gun guitar. I was 230 pounds. That's a lot of steak. You know what I mean? So, I weaned myself off of that, pretty, after a short while. And I'm still, you can see the differences. Like now, I still lift all the time. I'm really dedicated to, what I eat and everything. But for me, the perfect world is to play guitar all day, or lift weights, or just stare at a wall and drool. Those are my three favorite things to do.
They all sound equally fun somehow.
Yeah, they are, as a matter of fact.
So just to go, I wish I was of age, forgive me, because I'm 40. I wasn't around, because to see that the duo and to have that kind of, that's what always made Alice great, because he himself is a character, and then have a character like you who's more than just a character. You have the talent and the chops to back it up, and then it's like you have this visual spectacle. So with you guys being best friends then and still now, I know you've obviously talked about this in the past, but what about the decision to leave Alice and kind of do your own thing? What happened there?
I'd been with Alice for a few years. Let me see, was it maybe 2 years before we got the first record deal. And then, we did recorded the record. We recorded it in New York with Bo Hill, and then we go back and Michael Wagner mixes it, and now we're getting ready for the tour. And all the time it's all my life. The sort of nexus of my life, of course, was this amazing genius guy, Alice Cooper, and Shep is as well. It's almost like me and Alice. It's a combination that really works. Okay, so after the second album and tour, which was Raise Your Fist and Yell, I got a record deal on Geffen because right before the Raise Your Fist and Yell tour, a guy named Michael Alago, who signed White Zombie and Metallica, he wanted me to get a record deal on MCA, and he wanted to be the guy and all that stuff. So I did, and then he left there, and I was left with like basically nobody to sort of manage the record. But the record came out and everything. But then after the second tour with Alice, I got a deal on Geffen through Michael Alago again. He moved to Geffen, and the question was, what's the focus going to be? Am I going to split, am I going to spend 100% of my time trying to make a great record? It was an album called Saints and Sinners. And, I started writing with Desmond Child and Diane Warren. And, in terms of the 80s world or 90s, early 90s, that was kind of, the ultimate. So, and Alice was looking to go into a new phase. So the story that Alice always tells, and it's true, like I'm in bed, and he's next to me. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm in bed, and
you're so good with that.
Yeah, he's in Woodland Hills. I get a knock on the door, and Alice is there with his suitcases, and he goes, "I'm leaving you." Like it's a total movie scene, but we were cracking up because we knew it was time to part. So we had already spoken about it, and it was done very amicably. And then we almost got back together 5 years ago. I almost joined the band again. But, I was doing a lot of other stuff, a lot of stuff that was like, motion broadcast design and motion graphics and all this stuff. Still was playing guitar like a mental patient, but that was happening. And then, it just after I recorded with him on my record, I think it just naturally came around again. So there I was writing a new song called The Dead Don't Dance for the new album. And then suddenly then Nita, excuse me, who's one of my favorite, Nita's one of my favorite guitar players and just a wonderful person, a good friend. She got the gig. I was really happy about that. And then she went to do something with Demi Lovato for a little while. So it was just a natural thing for him to give me a call. And I remember I was sitting there, and this was one of my stare at the wall drool moments. So I wasn't expecting it. And the phone rings, and it's Cheryl Cooper, who's also a great friend. And Alice gets on the phone. And this is something nobody knows. Whenever he gets on the phone with me, I go, hello? And he'll sing Moon River, but he'll say Kane Roberts, wider than a mile. He does that every time. So he's the funny one. No, I'm kidding. So the funny thing is, so when he asked me that, I just went, yes, and what it meant for me is I had 6 weeks to sort of learn kind of the show and 26 songs. And then we had 3 rehearsals. So it was a big load to take on. But within, a few shows, it became kind of a natural thing. And of course, the rest of his band is awesome. I don't want to go without mentioning them, like Tommy, Glenn, Chuck, and Ryan. They're just really nice, great, supportive people and great musicians. So it was just like getting into a big, comfortable chair. And of course, what happened was Alice and I became best friends again. We didn't stop, but now we're going to movies. We're going out to dinner. I meet him every morning, 6:30 in the morning, to have breakfast before he goes golfing. So it was a really great situation. And I get the feeling it's going to happen again. So
I love that as a fan, because when you're a fan of a band or an artist, there's certain people that go in and out of the catalog that you become fans of, different eras, or it's just a moment in time of that artist, and you appreciate it all. I believe, if you're a real fan. But to have that, because sometimes it may end poorly, and you're like, and you look back and you listen to an era. I'm like, it was kind of ruined by what happened. Not you guys.
Read that, don't you? You hate that.
You do, because it just ruins the music for you. And I understand people are people, but then you have an example like you and Alice, it's just awesome where you can kind of just come in and, you know, just join like fit on like an old pair of slippers, or I guess for lack of a better analogy.
That's a great way to describe me. I think that's going to be my next album title. But seriously, a lot of it has to do with Shep and Alice. I mean, here's something. On tour, back then I was excessively hyper. I mean, you know, I if you weren't careful, I might elbow you in the chin by mistake. You know what I mean? I was just really kind of, over the top. Alice is the opposite. He's on an even keel. He's a balanced ship. You know what I mean? And so he would tell me to calm down. You know, we'd be at interviews and I started going up and, he'd say, take it easy. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of it has to do with them, all the experience that they had. And because they sort of nurtured me through all of that, which makes me excessively lucky. And when I say the word lucky, because, everybody goes, well, I don't have great luck, or I do have great luck, or it's all a matter of luck. It's that faith thing that you have to believe that your life is not cursed or not excessively charmed. It is what it is, and it's gonna get to a better place. I don't know if you believe that. I mean, look what you're doing now. I mean, you have an interest in communicating this way and influencing, with the music that you put out and your interviews and all that stuff. And now you're right in the mix. You're right in the fucking mix, and that's kind of an awesome thing to notice. You know what I mean? I
identify with a lot of that. You're right. And I think because I put that out there because I want people who listen to this podcast to feel the same. It's like yes, we live in the past a little bit and we enjoy nostalgia. That's part of the podcast. But it's living in the moment where I can say to myself, oh, I wish I did this interview, or I wish this went better, or comparing myself to someone else. I'm living in the moment. I'm having a great time with you, talking to you right now. And I think that's what a lot of it is. It's whether it's good or bad, or that's all. Some of that is really subjective. It's just living and being in the moment and surrounding yourself with good people. And you mentioned a lot of really good people who have been guests on the podcast. Michael Alago is one of them. Desmond Childs, he's actually coming back on the podcast. He is amazing. I told you in the email, lucky enough to have Alice Cooper, who's, again, he's just so brilliant and nice. And I think that you are right. It's because of who he is that helped you who you are. And that's why it made it work so well together. I've had Nita Strauss on. So, I mean, it's awesome to see that you guys are really getting along because you know how the media tends to be. They try to create competitiveness or, rivalries where they don't exist. So it's just really awesome to hear about your path and everyone, this family, this kind of Alice Cooper family. And I want to, it's a thought that's sticking in my head because you mentioned, of course, Shep Gordon a few times, the manager. So I was, and this is just an opportunity for me to mention something. I was working on a autobiography with Doug Goldstein, the former manager of Guns N' Roses. He might have been with the band, I think, when you guys toured. He probably should have been. He was with them from like 88 to 2004, so he should have been. I'm going to ask about that later. But when Guns N' Roses opened for us? Or? Yeah. I don't know if that was him or Alan Niven.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't know.
But he said to me, because before he quit Guns N' Roses and quit being Axl's manager, he's like, I want to stay in Hawaii and manage you from afar and be with my family, much like Shep Gordon does with Alice Cooper. So it can be done. And Axl said, no, you have to be in L.A. And he's like, all right, fine, I quit. And he hung up. So sorry, that's Shep Gordon little tidbit I needed to get out to my listeners. But with that being said, I guess, to do the whole segue, how early was that in your Alice Cooper tenure when Guns N' Roses opened for you? And what did you think of that band? Did you know about them? How much did you know about them before they teamed up with you guys?
Well, their history was Welcome to the Jungle came out and didn't do well. So, and this is a radical change or difference between record companies then and now. They pulled it, and then they waited 6 to 8 months. They found a better time to release it, and then they did it. And of course, the rest of the story. Mm-hmm. It was right after the second time it came out And so they were still like climbing the ladder. So they're opening for us. And, I was aware of who they were. It was one of those bands that just, they just gelled together. I mean, if you look at them, in like street clothes, hanging out, doing whatever, they just were kind of a wild bunch. But when they got on stage and they all started playing, they were making, just instinctively the right choices to be together and play. The other thing is, I remember with Axl and I, first of all, visually, I'm a strange guy to hang out with. You know what I mean? I weighed 220 pounds. I was like, it's just there was nobody. I wasn't, didn't look like anybody. Oh, so occasionally, guys, I noticed any bands, guys are looking at me like Dave Mustaine, like, what the fuck's this guy going to be like? And great guy, by the way. He's one of the warmest, sweetest guys. And so I remember we were at a hallway. Axel probably won't remember this, but I opened the door, and down the end of the hallway is another door. And he walks through it, and we're alone in this hallway. We both kind of thought, looked at the door behind us, should I go back out? But we decided to keep walking. And he turned out to be one of the coolest guys. He used to come up to me and while we're doing sound check and, telling me, oh, that fucking solo is awesome. Like that's the way he is. Really great guys. And they all were. And maybe the nicest person, that I met in that organization was Slash. It's just a very rare human being, the way he relates to people, to everybody. So, it turned out to be one of those things. And then shortly after, I think within that year, it would be good for Alice to open for them at that point, because they were just killing it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and it was, it was a great experience for everybody. They were think of it this way, unbelievable band to have as an opening act. You know what I mean? Oh, and wow. They were. Yeah.
That tour, I can only imagine. So, I have some questions for you from listeners, and these relate.
Sure.
They're going to be like avatar names, so none of them make sense. Mr. Trash, that's why. I don't think his last name is Trash. Alice, as we mentioned, was sober by this time. So how did he put up with the GNR guys doing all the drugs and the alcohol during those early years?
Well, Alice has an entire cultural existence on the bus. So, for example, my first night, this is a real thing. I got into the bunk. I was too big for the bunk. It was like, it's not like I couldn't kind of tuck myself in there and pull the curtain, but it was unbelievably uncomfortable. So I started hanging out in the back room with Alice. I was on the other side, the other bed on the other side. And then, I kind of knocked my way in and started, sleep. Oh, I fell asleep. Sorry about it, So I was doing it. And then I ended up doing the whole tour like that. And so what I learned was Alice had his assistant, this guy named Renfield, to make him 200 VHSs of Asian kung fu movies. And, the worst, where they fly up in the air and there's flames coming out of the swords and then they roll the film backwards. You know what I mean? Yeah. So and that's what we did. Literally, if we had a 12-hour drive, most of it was made up with that. So Alice does not really experience anything in the venue until the show. So, there was no like hanging out with Guns N' Roses for Alice. It's just, he doesn't hang out with the opening bands typically. Now, if somebody like at the last tour, some awesome people, some of the guys from the Beach Boys, came by, and he and I went and met them and said hi and everything. He'll make an effort to do that because, but when it comes to any opening acts, it's not that he wasn't interested. It was just his prep, his mindset to become that guy. Back in the day, especially back in the day, I would be on the stage with him, and occasionally I look at him and I go, yeah, he's not right now. You can tell like his mind had gone off a little bit, but because he's so embedded in that character. And he still does that, today. I would see it, and I'm just so fucking amazed. Even at this late stage in the game, he's the best thing on that stage. He's the most energetic in terms of like one of the things I noticed right at that Joe Louis Arena show. First show really. We did some little venues, but our first real show it's Halloween night and it's being filmed by MTV Live. So the band is like backstage with their instruments, literally sweating bullets. You know what I mean? Like very tense. And the keyboard starts playing, boom, boom, dun, dun, and Alice was welcome to, he sings that first line, and the crowd goes fucking crazy, right? So the rest of the band starts walking up into their stations and everything. Mm-hmm. And when the song started, because obviously, I came at it with a heavy metal approach. I wanted Alice to compete with Ozzy, the other amazing bands that were out there. Not that it's a direct competition, but the last thing we needed was he survived rehab. I wanted to make like he came out like a bionic version of what he was,
Nice, yeah.
And he agreed with it. So when you hear the arrangements, everybody thinks that, I was just going against the grain and everything. He was there for it. And so when he hit the stage, like he knocks this big cage over and comes out, the band calmed down. He just took control. It was unbelievable. And I mean, the last row, he was able to communicate with them. And that was one of the things he used to talk to me about. He said, you have to spread your perception. You can't be sitting there thinking, oh, how do I look? Looking at your hand. You have to have the show down so much you don't have to look at anything. You can look at whatever you want. If you want to look at your hand while you're playing, go ahead. But the point is that you have to sort of, express yourself in a wider spectrum than just the stage in the first 3 rows. And, never got as good at it as he is. This last tour, we were doing the Louder in Life Festival. Mm-hmm. And he's doing Poison. And, he said, raise your hands if you're Poison. The whole fucking place did it.
He still has that effect. He's Alice Cooper.
Well, he knows what to do. He just knows, yeah.
No, he is a gift, and I hope just being in the radio world that his radio show finds another home. I have a lot of friends that worked at that company that was bought out, and his show wasn't there, and they got canceled. So hopefully, because he's not just a performer. I mean, well, it is. It's you're performing with a microphone in this fashion, in radio fashion, as opposed to singing. By the way, the spoken word, Oh yeah.
It's since people were able to talk. There's always been somebody more eloquent, more articulate, more impactful, more charismatic at doing what you're doing. And by the way, it's very good. By the way, this is one of those interviews that you kind of look back and you go, geez, I'm fucking glad I did that. So,
Thank you. And it's because my listeners help me too with great questions, but I was going to ask this anyway. This is from Lords of Tantraz.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a question for you, and he's seen photos from. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been very famous photos of the entire Appetite lineup that you were on tour with.
Oh yeah. I know.
Plus Alice and you. So his question is like, whose idea was it, and how come it was just you and Alice? Why not both bands? So I guess, how did that photo shoot come together? Any good stories from that photo shoot?
Yeah, I know Lords of Tantraz. Actually, a very, very devoted fan, very sweet person. The thing is, Alice and I were very close. We're best friends. So we sort of designed the show. We took on the whole project, the two of us. So it wasn't that the rest of the band wasn't critical and we didn't have a feeling of a total band, but even on this last tour, he would want to do something, and he'd stick his head in the dressing room and say, "Kane, come on." And it has nothing to do with the rest of the band not being as important. It's just the sort of connection that we made. So he was very, in other words, we would be walking around the mall, right? And one of the other functions that I had was I was kind of a bodyguard. Nobody was going to fuck with him if I was, so it became one of those things. And so I think that photo shoot just started to gestate somehow on the road, and it was very quick. And Alice just said, "Hey, Kane, come on, we're going to do a photo shoot." That's all it was. It wasn't like I don't want the rest of the band in it. It's basically, that's what the function of this thing was in his mind.
That I assumed,
Yeah, so, and of course, we both wanted to take pictures with him, Steve Adler, all those guys, they're just fucking great people. So yeah, that's how it happened. I don't want anybody to think there was some, a lot of times on the road, there aren't these, meticulously worked out decisions that are made, to make sure that, we hit the right demographic. It's chaos, So that's how that night ended up.
Yeah, I figured as much because the way he asked it, I'm like, I doubt that it was a purposeful decision not to have the rest of the band. It probably just materialized, and that's who was available. But I wanted to make sure I asked his question. But were they? Because I've spoken to certain photographers that had a prop Izzy up or Slash up. Anything like that? Were they all attentive?
No, we never experienced that.
Okay.
We never experienced. Yeah, there were not moments where I'd walk by and we even would go to nightclubs. I guess after the show or the night before the show or whatever. I didn't see anybody hammered. I just never saw it. So, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Jeez, you know what I mean?
Right.
I know Steve partied a little bit. I like all those guys, but nobody was ever during the show was having problems or whatever. They're I think they're at that time and probably and still now, but the center of everything that they do, the most important thing was music. And so that's what it was. And it didn't necessarily translate into going to music school or, practicing 7 hours a day. It wasn't that. It's just, it's who they were. So I think that was of prime importance. They wouldn't like it if somebody got on stage and they couldn't perform.
Sure, absolutely. One last question, and then I'll want to get into everything that you have going on currently and then the future.
Sure.
This is from Wolf's Retro Comite. Comite with a K. Was Kane offered to stay for the entire Trash album and tour? And if so, did he have any songs or riffs that he wrote for that scenario? By the way, I love seeing Freedom live last fall. Will go down as one of my favorite concert memories.
Well, that's the thing is that I was still around. I was doing my record. And by the way, Alice is writing with Desmond Child, and so am I.
Right.
So, all the things were going on at the same time. I did write with them, but they ended up not using a number of songs. One of them, they didn't use the song that I wrote with them, but they wanted me to come in and do a solo on Bed of Nails. So by the time that record was being recorded, I was no longer in the Alice Cooper band.
Got it.
And, this is a question a lot of people ask. On the newest thing, like when they hired me, I was never intended to replace Nita. It was basically, I was filling in for the 2 months or whatever it was. So, I was, like Nita came out and played one night, and we were just laughing about the whole thing, because, we're friends and everything. And we both recognize that we have a lot of the same quote unquote responsibilities and all that stuff. We're just talking about it. But, I was just talking to Alice, literally, I must have been a week ago. He was talking about something else that we're going to do. So I said, geez, you have such a great band, because I was talking about Nita and everybody. And I said, it must be very comfortable to go into a situation and it's a well-tuned machine and you know what to expect and they're good people. And he said, yes, it's a really comfortable situation for me. And, not comfortable in the sense that it doesn't have an edge to it. I'm just saying he's happy with the people he's with.
He likes going to work. He likes going to work. Everybody wants that.
Nita's been in the band, 8-9 years, maybe 10.
Something
and
like
Chuck and those guys, it's all 15, 20 years.
Ryan Roxy.
That's his band.
Yeah.
My desire is not to go in and somebody leaves. That's not my goal. I don't think about that every day.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, no.
Today I am. No, I'm kidding.
I love that dry sense of that's the Northeastern in you that I appreciate too. It's just that sly, quick little. Like, what did he say? Oh, that was a joke in there. I love that.
All my friends, when I lived in New York, I had one guy that used to say, "Hey, out the window, my sneakers." It's like, what the fuck is he talking about? It didn't matter. You just throw the thing in. It's a total New York humor, definitely.
Oh, for sure. That's why I love it. And that's why I didn't ask you, because I saw the recent interviews that you did talking about how that was going to be just a temporary replacement while she was touring with Demi. And also something that it's interesting, but I guess I now understand it more because of talking with you, because you're just a humble guy, that you felt that you stuck out like a sore thumb on stage.
I know. Everybody
But I
talked
mean-
to me about that interview.
But I mean, haven't you always done that since you've been Rambo?
Exactly. See, the thing is that I put the band together because I was the musical director, quote unquote. I pulled my suspenders out. No, but I was, that show was the both tours, and the second tour especially, the sort of culture of violence that we created. That's something that I was just sort of embedded in. It was woven into every moment of it. This particular show has like an entirely different sort of atmosphere to it. It's not the same at all. So I felt like, this guy that was in that band is now here, and of course, Nita is a gorgeous female, and now they got this like beast walking around,
I know.
So that's all I meant. I didn't feel like I didn't belong there. I just felt like, and here's something that nobody saw. There was one night, and the people that were at the show will remember this. Alice fell. He fell as he was getting up on this little riser that you stood up on to do a solo, or he'd get up there to sing a line or whatever, and he fell. Now, one of my jokes with him was when sometimes I'd walk into the studio with a new producer or whatever, and I would walk like I had a wooden leg, and I'd say, if it wasn't for my leg, I'd have my own deal. And I'd walk through like I was pissed off, and everybody would thought I was serious. So that was, the joke. So I said that to Alice, during the tour. He falls down, and he comes walking by me going, if it wasn't for my leg, I could finish the show. You know what I mean? We were that friendly on stage. We knew all of this. It wasn't new to either of us. So I just don't want people to think that, I didn't enjoy playing with them. It's a fucking amazing band. So
for sure. And you alluded to, because I completely respect and admire your viewpoint. Like, you appreciate your history and time with that band, but you love what they are now. But you alluded to stuff in the future. So what in the future, whether it's touring or recorded material, like, do you plan on working with Alice on?
Yeah. Let's put it this way.
Or can you not say? Is it a secret?
I fully expect to play more live shows.
Okay.
So and I'm recording now, and one of the songs is going to be a song off the Raise Your Fist and Yell album. So I'm struck with, how much of an advantage it is for Alice to sing on that, because I'm not saying anything he does with me is an advantage to him, but I certainly don't want to step on the opportunity of him doing something, and the blowback isn't significant enough to make it let's say more ostensibly profitable for him in some way. So I've got stuff I'm doing, but I'm going to we'll write together. If he does another record, I'd like to do like I played on the song I wrote with him, Dead Don't Dance, and I can't see any reason why that's not going to happen again. Some other things are cooking, but I'll keep people posted as we go along.
That sounds good. Yeah, no, I love that. It's just the possibilities are out there, and the attitude is right. It's what you said before. Just the faith is right. The love is still there, so I'm excited. And so we should see in the future, though, your follow-up, because you were working on the follow-up to your solo album, The New Normal, for a few years now. So is that what we could expect? I'm sure COVID threw it in a monkey wrench. So is that what we can expect in the future, near future?
No. Well, see, the New Normal album, and the strange thing is, if you look at that cover, this is before COVID. So it's a girl wearing a mask, and there's blood, and it says The New Normal.
That's right. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
Alyssa pointed that out to me. It freaked her out. She said, do you realize, and you have a song called The Beginning of the End? She said, it's almost like you channeled something, and we were laughing. And by the way, one more thing I want to say about Alyssa. If you listen to, she does the whole growl thing, but then she sings. And, check it out. It's insanely good. And, I let her just do what she wants. I said, just sing on this section. Here's the lyrics, do whatever you want. We didn't change one thing when it came back, because her standard is and talent, and her intellect is just, perfect for music. She's just really great at it. So with The New Normal, it was kind of, everybody says, well, one of the things that has to happen is the record company has to, it's like a marriage. There has to be somebody there that's an evangelist for you. They can't have, I can't have the wrong attitude, like I'm some tough guy, a genius or whatever, and they can't come at you like that. A lot of companies are very cold, and you have a manager that sort of intercedes and like is a buffer between the two entities if there's a potential problem arising. But, we didn't have that. So I didn't really have problems with them in terms of, my relationship with them. It's just, certain things didn't match. I mean, I know they're not crazy. I mean, I'm very, as you can tell, I can talk, so if I get like, I'll come at you pretty hard, not out of, being some sort of, I'm not angry or malicious.
You're passionate. You're a passionate guy.
I'm just trying to get this shit done. So it didn't work out. Now, Serafino and Mario, those two guys, they're awesome. And they got a nice business model, Frontiers. So it just wasn't a match made in heaven by any stroke of the imagination. And then, what I believe records require, especially, if somebody hasn't been around for a while, is a certain amount of marketing, money that has to be spent. All these records that come out on YouTube, the ones that sort of get a big jump, not all of them, but those, there was some money thrown at Google, at YouTube to get that jump start. So they don't do things like that in my belief. But they did some good things. So, I'll never sit here and complain about it. It's just, a matter of methodology, and, I'm fucking cool and they're not as cool. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Serafino. It's a joke.
I totally get it, and I respect that. Because I'm not in your world, but just in my world, what I've dealt with, I kind of do get it. You got to wait for the stars to align, the right people, and I'm sure it will. People. And and I'm sure it will. But whatever, regardless.
I got like 2 years left, but I appreciate the sentiment. No, I'm kidding.
No, I whatever the timeline is, I'm looking forward to the future for Kane Roberts and seeing what's to come. So for people, is the best way for people to keep in touch with you on Facebook, Kane Roberts FB page, or on Instagram? That's how I contacted you.
On Instagram, my there's somebody named Kane Roberts, so I put Kane Roberts X. That is legitimately me. And Facebook, I'm pretty easy to find. There's a few pretenders out there, but you'll be able to tell when it's me. So that's the best way to get in touch with me. And people that do, they'll know that I always respond. I respect everybody's opinion. I'm not like, one of the guys that kills me. And by the way, Sebastian is a great guy. I mean, people don't know him. They think he's like too abrasive and all this stuff. He's a really cool, funny guy. And he's amped up, So, if somebody says the wrong thing, they're going to hear it from him. He's going to knocking all sort of shit off the guy's head. But I don't do that. I keep things really just kind of copacetic. If somebody's just, getting a little fucking way over the top negative, especially to somebody else,
right? Like
if somebody's bagging on another musician or whatever, I usually I'll cancel on them. But 99 times out of 100, I'll respond, and I read all the messages and stuff. So absolutely, yeah. So that's the best way.
Well, thank you for reading my message in this time today, Kane. I hope we get to do this again. Yeah, no, we should. Maybe when I get some stuff coming out at the end of the year, maybe, I'll call you up and you'll go, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I can't fucking do it. That's all good. That's all good. All right, man. So thank you so much. And so as we wrap up, next episode, we're going to have a friend of yours, somebody you worked with, we spoke about before, Desmond Child, coming back on the podcast. Jared Weeks from the band Saving Abel, who is a very weird, unique 6 Degrees of GNR Bacon, so stay tuned for that. But as far as this episode is concerned, it is done. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.